Beau is Afraid. It's definitely a movie. It's got moving pictures. I'm sure you already know that this film is directed by Ari Aster, who has undoubtedly made his mark on the film industry over the last 5 or so years, even recently receiving high praise from one of the greatest directors of all time, Martin Scorsese. But his filmography certainly speaks for itself, Hereditary being one of the most significant entries into the contemporary horror genre. A film that I've only seen once, but for good reason. It is terrifying, and frankly, the idea of rewatching it is quite intimidating. And then of course there's Midsommar, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Which I didn't love as much. I felt like it had a great opening sequence, but it never seems to have a strong sense of narrative or thematic direction, ultimately resulting in a bit of self-indulgence, which I hate to say because it was a film that still very much showed a lot of promise for Aster as a unique voice in the industry. Regardless, I still very much enjoyed it. By no means is it a bad film. Now, as for the case of Beau is Afraid, it's not a bad film. It's not bad. But man, this one did not escape the self-indulgence allegations. I went into this film knowing that there was a lot of divisiveness surrounding it, and part of me was a bit worried that the problems I had with Midsommar might carry over into this one. Perhaps it was a self-fulfilling prophecy or something, because it was essentially everything I had suspected it would be based on its general reception. Beau is Afraid can be interpreted a handful of ways. I think at its core this film is trying to personify anxiety and explore absurdity, and from what Ari said himself, ambivalence is a central theme as well. Basically, this guy's got some serious mommy issues. I can't say that I really relate to Beau. I'd like to think that my relationship with my mom isn't exactly analogous to his. Maybe that's why I didn't love this movie? No, I've seen plenty of movies I don't necessarily relate to but are effective enough for me to love and appreciate them. I can't really say this is the case with this one. The issue with Beau is that it has this collage of ideas that don't cohesively interweave in a satisfying way. It's curveball after curveball in a bloated 3-hour runtime. It feels like a ridiculously long episode of Family Guy slowly becoming a parody of itself. A meta-ironic meditation on elevated horror, which might actually be a positive for some people, and I totally get that. It just didn't work for me. After a while, the need to top itself at every turn starts to become eye-rolling as opposed to thrilling or intriguing. If Tenet was the most Nolan-y Nolan film, then Beau is Afraid is the most Astery Aster film. I think his style of filmmaking really comes full circle here, with the mix of bright, warm colors contrasted with its dark, twisted, thematic underbelly. We can see this approach to storytelling way back in his early work with The Strange Thing About the Johnsons. I think Ari's in the process of developing his craft as being further experimented with in Beau is Afraid. I can appreciate the influences he's drawing from, with the clear Kaufman and Cronenberg elements being mixed into the acid trip that is this film. I see what he's trying to do, and it's almost there. But the difference between him and Kaufman or Cronenberg is their ability to engulf me in the absurdity and convey their ideas in a meaningful way. A lot of people have made this criticism of Ari a lack of focus, and I hate to agree that it is very apparent here. I think there are standout moments where those feelings of anxiety and uncertainty come through effectively, but there's an equal amount of instances where it falls flat. This makes the runtime feel more taxing. Quick spoiler warning, skip to this timestamp if you have not seen the movie. I'm gonna briefly talk about some plot points, so yeah. I think there was a relatively strong first act. From the very beginning, it's established that this isn't really going to be grounded in reality. Beau lives on this insanely rundown city block where he really can't catch a break because there's crazy shit going on at every second. You gotta worry about some naked guy who's trying to stab everyone and a flock of crackheads that are flooding into your apartment building. And of course the impending visit that he has to pay to his mother, who he later finds out is supposedly dead. I think it was a generally good setup for a potentially entertaining and obscure film, but by the time we reached the second act, it felt like there was a loss of momentum momentum, and I was just kind of anticipating the next crazy thing that was gonna happen. This is where the ideas start to feel more miscellaneous and less focused. I think it really started to lose me when Beau was inserted into that trippy animated play where he lives out this hypothetical alternate life. And no matter how relevant it might be to the thesis of the film, it felt like a detour from the more interesting ideas that were originally put in place in the first act. And by the time we reach the end, it almost becomes weirdly predictable. Now, I can't say I expected there to be a giant, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But I did feel like I got the gist of where the overall narrative was going to end. And at that halfway point, I kind of had a feeling of where this film wanted to go thematically. Overall, I felt a distance from the tension that was supposed to be there. Now, whether or not Ari was actually influenced by these movies, being John Malkovich, I'm thinking of Ending Things, Synecdoche, New York, Crash, The Fly, Videodrome, all films that I think are generally in a similar wheelhouse. With each of these examples, you can draw a thematic line of best fit. As with each film, it doesn't feel like they're ever deviating from the central idea. And I don't feel like I can say the same for Beau is Afraid, although you could say that for Hereditary. And yeah, even though it is perhaps a bit more conventional. Of course, Joaquin does his thing and all the performances are great, which seems to be a strong consistency in Ari's films. On a micro level, he is a great director, bringing out the best performances from all his actors in any given scene. He's also shown to have a sense of humor that separates his style from many others, and I think that's something to look forward to in future films of his. I do want to make this clear, I am rooting for the guy. I'm not one of those Ari Aster haters. I'll still be there for whatever he decides to do next. When I give high praise to a film like last year's Nope, saying that I want studios to back more of these original screenplays, I mean it. And I also accept the fact that not every single one of them is gonna be perfect. I think that makes everything a whole lot more interesting. Some people are gonna love Beau is Afraid, and some people are gonna hate it. I'm not on either side. In fact, I'm quite conflicted. I could see myself coming around to this film in the future, but for now, this is how I feel. So tell me your thoughts in the comments, because I'm sure there's a diversity of opinions out there, and I'm all ears. While you're at it, you can leave a like and subscribe if you got big enough balls to do that. Okay, thank you for watching.